Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Willie, and this is the encouraging word for today. Where was God? Where was God? Last week we heard horrible news out of Nashville, Tennessee. 3 children and 3 adults in a grammar school. They were in the I believe 4th grade, 9 years old, were shot down like animals by someone on a hunting trip. The questions come as soon as we hear news like that. The question why comes. Why did this happen? Where was God? Why did God allow this to happen? And we don't see God. The darkness overwhelms our perception of God. And if we're not careful, we'll begin to lose our faith or only have faith in God on Sunday morning in church. Where is God in a tragedy? Where is God? And we can conclude that God doesn't care, or maybe even God doesn't really exist. There's no evidence of God's concern. But God always gives us enough of His grace to strengthen our faith in the most horrible of situations. And David's story offers us evidence of that very fact. David is at the lowest point in his life. He's become king, but his second son has killed his oldest son, and now his second son Absalom has taken over the throne and betrayed David. And David is on the run with his men. He's left. They're on foot. And Absalom, his son, is wanting to kill him, to kill his father. And they left in a hurry. They're walking. They took no provisions with them. They didn't pack. They're just running for their lives. And then something amazing happens. A man named Ziba comes to David, and he's got a string of donkeys all saddled, ready to be ridden, and they're loaded with 200 loaves of bread, 100 cakes of raisin, and a skin of wine. Listen to what it says in 2 Samuel 16, verse 2. The king asked Ziba, "Why have you brought these?" Ziba answered, "The donkeys are for the king's household to ride on. The bread and the fruit are for the men to eat, and the wine is to refresh those who become exhausted in the wilderness." It was evidence of God's care, evidence of God's grace in the midst of David's darkest night, in the midst of tragedy. And the evidence of God's love is still there, no matter what the tragedy is. The evidence of God's plan is still there in the midst of a broken world. Where do we see that evidence in the Nashville school shooting? We see it in 2 places, in my opinion. First is with law enforcement, the police, the first responders who went to the scene. The shooting was active. They heard the gunfire and they ran in towards the gunfire. They didn't wait. They took their lives into their own hands, extremely well trained, extremely well executed, and they entered the building and found and killed the shooter before more children were killed. It was bravery, courage, self-sacrifice, evidence of God's grace, living for others, putting your life on the line. The second place where I see evidence of God's grace is the church, the Covenant Church, which was the school was part of that church. I see the love and support and prayer showed to the families of those grieving. And those people in the church became instruments of God's comfort and care. And yes, in a broken world filled with tragedy, there is still evidence of God's grace all around us if we look for it. Because God is still working, and God will bring to pass what he has promised. So my challenge to you and to myself today is to be an instrument of God's grace today in a broken world. Instead of asking, where is God? Ask, how can I be an instrument of God's grace today towards someone in a broken situation? God bless you. This is Pastor Willie, and I will see you again tomorrow.